Coming to graphics in 5, 4,
Graphics
3,
are hot.
2, 1. Roll them.
Graphics away. Coming out of this in 20 seconds.
20 seconds to cameras.
Out of graphics in 10,
10 seconds.
9,
Cameras.
8, 7, 6,
5,
5,
4,
3, 2, 1.
Hey everybody. Surprise, we're back. Another episode of Ready Take Live. Final episode of Season 2, Episode 209. It's like rain on your wedding day. I'm your host, Aubrey Russell, one of your three wonderful hosts. I like to think that we're wonderful hosts. You can comment below and tell me how not wonderful we are if you'd like. And today's episode, it's like rain on your wedding day. First of all, great song. Everyone wants to sing. Isn't it ironic at all times? But we like to think rain is a sign of good luck. And today's episode is all about how to do production in the worst environments. So as always, I'm joined by our wonderful audio engineer, Nick Nagurka. How's it going today, Nagurka?
Going well, guys. Just, hanging out. A little
Cool.
under the weather, but, we're pulling through.
Sorry about that. No fun to be under the weather, but we power through.
Yes.
And on the pitcher's mound, we've got
What up?
Walsh.
How's it going, everyone? I like what you did there, Nagurka, under the weather. That was a really sweet pun. Gotta throw that in there.
So yeah, it's like rain on your wedding day. Rain is a sign of good luck on your wedding day, and it was a big day for LiveX on New Year's Eve this year. As some of you may know who have been to our offices or have ever visited our website, you would see that Times Square New Year's Eve is one of our flashiest things that we get to do. We've done it for 10 years now. This was the 10th year, which was very exciting. And the weather wasn't ideal. It wasn't ideal. And it was also a big day for us because this was the maiden voyage of our first production trailer. So we'll get into that in a bit, and I don't want to jump in too fast to our trailer because first we have an amazing guest. He is the executive and technical producer of Times Square New Year's Eve, and he has been for 22 years, among many other things. The amazing Charlie Pardo. Hey, Charlie.
Hello, 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 hello.
Hello, hello, hello. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you for having me.
All right, one second. I'm just trying to... there we are. All right.
Punching me
One
out.
second. There we are. We're good. minor setback. We're all good. Thank you so much for being on the show. Obviously, you've now done New Year's for 22 years, which is amazing. And you've seen it through highs and lows. We were frozen last year. This year, we were flooded almost. Can you talk to me about how that was from your perspective and on your side of the show?
Doing any production outdoors, New Year's Eve is outdoors in the middle of winter, no cover, no roofs. 7th Avenue continues to run with traffic until about 2 hours before the event. So any production outdoors under those circumstances is always dramatically more challenging than controlling a space indoors. So, it's always fun. It's always different. But it is New Year's Eve Times Square.
Yeah.
The only North American pilgrimage.
Sorry?
The only North American pilgrimage, if you actually think about it.
Yeah.
That's very true. That's very true. I know from our perspective, our equipment was out with field teams this year. So it was the idea of having portable rain gear and portable rain gear for our cameras and for our audio systems, which unfortunately didn't work for every single piece of equipment, but worked for some. You had more stationary gear. Obviously, you had movable cameras and jibs and things like that, but the stationary gear requires a little bit of a different covering, but you're also not able to put up a tent and block everything. So what was the take on that for you guys? How did you deal with that on the stages?
In the cases of New Year's, what we commonly do is once we build the structures, we actually use a tremendous number of tarps and visqueen and set the runoff so that any gear that we have substructure underneath the stage is covered by whatever plastics we can, and accounting for any heat sinks or airflow that we have to make sure that we leave intact. Once you're out in the elements, you use, for the bigger, heavier stuff, you use elephant bags. Very common to winter production, and field bags, which come custom with most Sonys or Ikegamis. But you really have to go a step. If you really know you're going to be in heavy rain, you have to go a little beyond that and do a little bit of gaffer's tape and plastic to augment the setup. Sometimes if there is a SMPTE plug-in connection, you have to make sure that you set it up so that the water doesn't run down the camera cable into the back of the inputs, things like that. In the cases of lenses, no matter how much protection you do, as soon as they tilt up, you're effectively filling a glass of water.
Oh my God.
Very expensive one.
Very expensive water. We have, sad to say, on New Year's, we're the parent feed, we're the world feed, we're the pool feed. It's about 21 cameras overall. And we have 10 lenses into Fujinon right now at a cost probably in the area of $30,000 to $35,000.
Wow.
So.
Yeah. And this is, we obviously were freezing last year, freezing temperatures, and it's snowed before, and other things have happened weather-wise. It's an outdoor event. Anything can happen. How does this compare to past years?
In our 22 years, I think we've had snow 3 times very close to or around show day, rehearsal and show day. We've probably had rain events 2 or 3 times, and we've never had cold the way we had cold. It was -4 to -14 degrees. And for those tech geeks out there, not for this show, but I did World Cup biathlon, and I actually had to look up the freezing temperature on standard lenses because it's a mixed gas in the lens, because we were -30 to -60 degrees for World Cup biathlon, and the mixed gases in lenses freezes at -15 degrees. So we were okay for last New Year's Eve, though it was bitterly cold for the crew. And this particular rain happened to hit just 2 hours before rehearsal started and went, heavy rain. We've never had rain of this magnitude for the entire duration of rehearsals and the show, and even leading into strike. So, as an example, we'll have an even worse, a good average moving light is probably about $35,000. But they're really not built to be NEMA rated. NEMA is the standard for which, boxes, electrical connection boxes out in the public domain are measured by. There are different ratings. Moving lights, cameras are not built for NEMA ratings. They're built for, like UL ratings, and there are other specific ratings, but they're not really meant, if you take your laptop and walk it out in the middle of the street and let it get rained on for 12 hours, that's about the equivalent of what you expect from a $35,000 moving light, So sadly, I and my clients will be getting that bill as well. Again, let's talk why real quick. Because Times Square New Year's Eve is a 110-year-old event all about the ball and ball raising and people coming together to celebrate and get excited about changing their life and having an amazing year coming forward. We can't put a roof on the structure because it would block. There's a giant media riser just behind us, and that giant media riser has 20 to 30 different broadcast stakeholders that work with us on the show. So if I put a roof up, I block their line of sight to the ball, and then cross street wise, east to west, if I put a roof up, it blocks the line of sight to the large LED screens, which are a monstrous source of income for the building owners, who would be very upset by us. So my poor clients have to roll the dice every year and hope for the weather gods to be with them.
Just like the old days.
We have a comment or a question on Facebook from Christopher. He was asking if, especially for last year, for the winter outdoor events and the other events that you've done in the winter outside, having heaters for the equipment, is that something that you spec out, or is that not an option?
The gear, the thing, before I started television, I was a department manager of software engineering support for Unisys. Boy, that's a mouthful, huh? But what we did was MTBF testing, mean time between failure. And the thing that I really learned is that electronics do perfectly wonderful in cool or even bitterly cold weather. It's really heat. Heat destroys electronics. So from a heater's perspective, no, not really that much for, if there's an LCD display, like by the lighting board, the Grand MAs, we'll have to have a little heat in there, or the LCD displays won't work. But other than that, it's human comfort. It's really not, oh my God, the dimmer rack's not going to work for lighting, or the throwdown DAs aren't going to work for, for audio.
Yeah.
I remember last year we would pull out. I think the only real problem we had with the cold was it's really cold to patch out there when you're not wearing gloves, and sometimes you'd pull out a Cat 6 or something, and it would just shatter.
Whoa.
Yeah. Well, you bring up a great point. The insulators on the different cables is dramatic. Most people don't think about it. The exterior insulators of cables are actually extremely different.
Right.
And some of them crack hard, and Cat 6E is a perfect example. It's a hardened casing, so if it gets really cold and you start over and undering it, you're probably going to start shredding the insulator. But no, from a snowy weather perspective, probably I did the Gravity Games, and the Gravity Games, they wanted to do a winter one, and so we were at Mammoth Mountain. And the directors, it was NBC, and they really wanted to do film. They wanted to be Warren Miller. And, I kept saying, no, with a broadcast crew, you can't do that, because you have to wait for, Warren Miller sits there and waits for ideal weather. You can't do that when you have a crew of 120 people to shoot a show. So we had no snow. Everybody was paranoid. Then we got 10 feet of snow in 10 days. Well, you really can't shoot in film with snow. So they asked me 24 hours before the Grand Slalom, hey, we'd like 18 cameras on this course, which is 14,000 feet in the air and miles long. Can you, in fact, set up 18 cameras? And this was just at the beginning of fiber optics. So I used some I countered from LA to Mammoth and had PAs grab the gear. And we ran fiber all the way up the 14,000, the poor utilities working with me. We literally trudged cable up and down the mountain, took our best skiers, started them at the top, and they're skiing powder with cable in their hands, going up the mountain. And we put out 18 cameras, we took the encoder out of the cameras and ran it into paint boxes in the truck. We were only supposed to be there to do the screens feed, and the live event. We weren't there to do broadcast coverage. That was their film piece. And so within 24 hours, and I used, again, because I just took the encoder out, we used listen boxes, because that's all they had at the time for fiber optics. So the cameraman only had listen only, so the director said it was the best show he ever did. Since they couldn't. Sorry, cameraman. And we got 17 of the 18 cameras done that, for Grand's, giant slalom. So that was definitely. And at the end of that event, since we had 10 feet of snow in 10 days, we had positioned some cameras on top of roofs. And everybody was saying, oh, my God, we'll never get these down. How are we ever going to get them down? So I had the snowcat drive up. I put a 5-point harness on. I had them clip me in on the back. I wish I had gotten video of it. And I took a shovel, and they snowcat hoisted me up onto the roofs, and I dug out all the cameras, and we took them down one at a time that way from the roofs and the setbacks. So, but yeah, so that was a crazy weather related incident, and I thought I was being, and I told Corey, the president of LiveX, my other story when it comes to rain. I thought I was being very clever on gravity games, and I knew a big storm was big supercell was coming up the coast. We were in Providence, and I thought I was being very clever. I got big Tupperware boxes, and I put 2x4s in the bottom, and I cut holes in the side. And so I put my electronics in there so that they could breathe out the little cutout holes, and put cabling in and out, and then put the Tupperware on top and put it under the staging where we were, feeding all the other screens and the other trucks. And I thought we were covered. In the middle of the show, we start cascading, losing all the. We started losing all the LED screens, and I was like, "What happened? What happened?" So I had somebody cover me at the switcher, and I ran out, and sure enough, the V1 didn't like the settings on the telecast Viper muscle that we had set up. He'd taken the top off to adjust it. He had forgotten to put the top back on, and so the gear was floating in a sea of water. I had been so clever. I had thought, left the cover off, and $30,000 worth of encoder decoder was, floating.
Oh man.
Huh.
Well,
So-
you had the right idea though. I mean, we've used that tub to hide things before as well.
It's like,
Yeah,
yeah. So it works as long as you put the cover back on. So
Right.
exactly.
you know.
And a couple of us worked a show in last summer in Colorado at Pikes Peak, and we did the Pikes Peak race down the mountain, and that is not able to use fiber because the fiber gets eaten by the animals in the mountain. It's 4,000
The
feet.
marmots.
Yeah, the marmots eat all the fiber, so they're having to do an NDI workflow, which was cool to be a part of, but also it would have been so much easier just to have fiber run for 4,000, especially if you're doing it for 14,000. It's like, oh, piece of cake.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, no, it's the marmots. A big mistake backpackers make is if they're doing the final summit on like a 14er, that if it's technical and there's real climbing, they'll leave their backpack behind and do the last section without their backpack, and they'll come back to find the marmots chewing away on their gear.
oh, goodness.
So yes, I'm not surprised. Yeah, no, probably the biggest weather-related thing we had, I did, it was 2012, I did the Ryder Cup. In 08 and 012 for Jack Morton Worldwide, I was the executive and technical producer for Ryder Cup. And in 12, we had a cell moving up that had serious potential to have a tornado. And in fact, it was looking that way. So we dropped our rig, we creatively used the heavy forklifts that we had and rigged the big stage we had to that to give it additional ballast, and did the same with blocks and our TV trucks and camera positions and stuff just to give it additional support. And then we hadn't finished scabbing. We had $250,000 of scenery to scab onto the stage, and we hadn't finished. And so we had it all laying in the field, so we tried to lash that down. And we put everybody in a bunker to ride through it. And the tornado actually hit, and Ryder Cup had close to, I think, $8 million worth of tents that year. And a lot of them got ripped up and thrown away, and the course got ripped up, and a lot of the broadcast infrastructure. And so we had, for our piece of it, we had taken really good care of everything. So recovery was, a couple of hours by the crew. But then our crew spent the next day and a half getting groundskeeping and the main broadcast show and everything else on air so that we could just make it. But, again, there was a situation where, if you really think through even jerry-rigging things, you can save yourself a world of woe.
Definitely,
Wow.
definitely. But it's the joy of live. That's why we do it.
Well, I like doing, my hobbies are very adventurous. When you're doing remotes around the country or around the world, outdoors. If you think about it, the Oscars, the Emmys, the Grammys, the Tonys have technical challenges, and they have their space for a week or 2 weeks or whatever they need it for, and they still have challenges. But when you take it to another level outdoors, as is the case with New Year's, for a normal outdoor production, we would have roofs, we would have side walls, we would have a lot of different things that could help mediate these challenges a lot easier. In New Year's, all our little pilgrims are stuck in the great outdoors with us, and so we all enjoy the evening together, whether it's raining, snowing, or sleeting.
Exactly. And the biggest part of the webcast for us is talking to the revelers. And both years, whether it's freezing cold or whether it's raining, these last 2 years, people have been in such good spirits anyways. So like you said, it's this pilgrimage that people make, and they're there for it, and they're there for it, whatever that means for them. So that's awesome.
They'll remember it. They'll remember their toil and suffering.
They'll have a story to tell.
their children and their grandchildren.
Exactly. Did you guys have anything that you wanted to ask?
Well, yeah, I guess all of these challenges you face, does this make us love you? Make you love your job, or does it make you hate your job?
Doesn't make, the big challenge is never, and again, Corey's been around me during some of the big challenges. Corey, I think I had Corey come with me to do one of the Washington, D.C. shows at the White House. I've done 3, and one of them they called Snowzilla. We actually had to put the entire show on a day early because they knew they were getting hit with, several feet of snow. And so it was accelerating everything. Those those challenges don't bother me. The only time I get annoyed or upset, honestly, is if it was something that really should have been on the radar. There are things in... One of my mantras is you live and die by pre-production, but if you do really poor pre-production, you're going to have lots and lots and lots of problems. And, that's your fault because you didn't really think through, well, what can happen, what will happen, what's my primary plan, what's my backup plan, what's my tertiary plan. It's when, if you're good at what you do, you plan and you plan for contingencies. And at that point, if something happens, you roll with the punches and you get it done. So I enjoy the challenges, as they come up. Those don't bother me. It's like when I'm executive producing a show on the back bench, most of my peers seem to enjoy yelling and screaming and ranting and raving. Don't ask me why, because if a problem comes up, and in the control room, everybody starts yelling at one another. Well, what does that do? All it does is delay the solution. All it does is delay the solution. So if a problem comes up and you can try to, all our hearts race. I saw a tiny little bit of that in the return feed from you guys. You must have had something going on about 5 or 6 minutes ago. But, there was no drama. You looked at one another, you fixed whatever feed issue that was happening, and you resolved it in a quick manner, exactly the way true professionals should. The whole yelling and screaming and ranting and raving is just totally counterproductive, But the standard, I fear, in most control rooms, But yes, I do this so that I work like a crazy man 6 to 8 months a year so that I can run off and do regular life adventures on trails and stuff the other 3 or 4 months a year, or sometimes even 6, my poor wife.
Oh, that's great. Nagurka, did you want to?
I think we
I think he's covered a lot.
of it.
Yeah, this is awesome.
Yeah.
Makes me want to do more outdoor winter shoots.
Me too.
I guess my first real technical problem was, and it was environmental because it was buried under a stage in the Dorset Theatre Festival. I worked in summer stock.
Yeah.
You know how summer stock goes. There's no money. And so I was the automation mechanism for Sweeney Todd for the chair. So I would have to bench press the person in the chair, open the doors, and flop them into the pit onto a mattress. And so they had a new person loading the pyro, and they had way overloaded. It was like our finale, and they had way overloaded the pots. And so I did my cue. I bench left. I pushed them in. It's the big finale. The pots go off, and the audience is amazed because they hear these blood-curdling screams from underneath the stage. The person had overloaded the pots so badly that my hair was on fire, and I was like, ah, ah. I guess that was the first big technical problem that I had to solve. Got my hair.
Well, it can't get much worse than that.
So we'll have, yes, there will always be, no matter how good, I guess the moral of the story is, do your pre-production, do it. It will save you lots of woes. But no matter how great your pre-production, there will be challenges in production, no question. There will always be. So you take a deep breath, nobody yells at anybody. You take the amazing, talented production heads that you've hired, you look at each other, you come up with that solution, and you put it in play. And, you leave the drama at home.
That's
or
awesome.
Hopefully not even. So.
Yeah. Thank you so much for being on the show, Charlie. This was really a treat. Hearing all these stories was really awesome, and I can't wait to go back and learn even more from these. And I hope to do a show in the snow now, just so we can use some of these things.
Oh yeah, show in the snow. Let's see, World Cup biathlon. We took all fiber optic, we laid it across the course, and there's rumors. So we spray painted in fluorescent paint. Don't have the blades come, raise your blades here. We put signs up, raise your blades here. So the day before opening, I get a call, hysterical. Even with all our flags and our fluorescent paint and our warnings and everything else, the driver cut all our main fiber optic runs, for World Cup biathlon in Maine.
Nagurka is cringing right now.
Yeah, you sort of spark memories when you say stuff. Sorry.
Definitely. No, thank you so much. This has been a treat, and we'll hope to work with you again a couple more times this year.
Thanks, guys. And good luck with the trailer. It worked brilliantly. The trailer worked brilliantly. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Bye.
Bye.
Bye, guys.
All right. That was great. Again, that was Charlie Pardo. He is the executive and technical producer for Times Square New Year's Eve and has been for 22 years. So Charlie's great. Always a pleasure to work with him. We were really excited that he agreed to be on the show. We're going to do a quick little pivot and talk a bit about this trailer that you just heard about. So I'm going to pass this off to Nick Nagurka, who, with his blood, sweat, and tears, built said trailer and everything that goes inside of it. So, Nagurka?
Well, no tears involved in the process for this, but it was a very, very exciting, and a lot of hard work went into the building of this trailer. So it's primarily based on it's a 24-foot trailer. It's fully 12G, 4K single link infrastructure. It's based on 192 points currently of 8K single link patch bays from Bittree. So we've got that's tied to dual 40x40 Blackmagic 12G routers, feeding an ATEM 20 input switcher. The system is designed to be sort of open architecture, so we can easily tie in any sort of needed machines, graphics, EVS, wherever we need throughout any position in the trailer. You also have LAN connectivity, Dante, sync at every station, so it makes it really nice and easy for us to switch up our workflows as needed, because no two shows are the same. And even for New Year's, where we really need to scale up the their mobile unit, we can still do that quite easily. It's also got a 36-port Clearcom matrix, Soundcraft VI1000. Everything is tied to Dante. I think the console right now is configured to be 163 by 163 I/O, which is pretty amazing, such a small package. We have IP control for Clearcom remote connections, so we can tie back to our MCR or deploy mobile apps, and all sorts of fiber that we can add on. We can also add on FreeSpeak. It's a lot that we've really squeezed into a small package, which I'm really proud of. And we'll keep improving it as chances arise. So really excited about the first iteration, though.
Yeah, it was an amazing maiden voyage. Like we said, it is a 4K trailer. It was not used in 4K for New Year's, but it is fully capable. And yeah, congratulations, Nick. Well done.
That's some good help there.
Yeah, it was a really cool moment for LiveX as a team, and I know that there are people watching who also are a part of streaming teams. It's not just freelancers, and even if you're a freelancer on a team. But it was just a beautiful example of the LiveX team coming together and building this. There's the LiveX team coming together and building this thing that then gets to do one of our most viewed live shows of the year, which is just incredible. I mean, we were all keeping warm in there, just huddled in close together, and
Keeping dry.
Keeping dry, exactly. Selfishly dry. There's Nick Walsh. That's Gaff. You can see all these people also in LiveX unboxing videos. So if you're ever like, what's that person's name? Check out our unboxing videos. No, I have to say, it was a very exciting thing. Normally we rent a broadcast truck, and we are sitting next to other broadcast trucks that the World Feed is using. This year it was a trailer that had LiveX all over it, sitting next to these trucks. And while we were, a little bit shorter than they were, our equipment and our team did just as well. So it was a very exciting thing for us. If you're interested in seeing more of the LiveX trailer, we do have some stuff coming out soon about it. We have a whole video. We'll be promoting all of that on our social channels. So make sure, if you don't already follow us on Facebook, on Twitter, subscribe on YouTube, and watch us on Instagram. We'll be pushing out more information about that in the coming weeks. It is available, and we'd love to have you come check it out and talk to us about it. Feel free to reach out at any time. We love chatting with you guys. We love this community, and we're excited to see what the future holds, what 2019 holds for us. Ready Take Live Season 3 will be back March 5th. Put it on your calendars. March 5th, we'll be back, Season 3. Get ready for a new look, some new style, some new pizzazz, but the same old faces that you're sick of looking at. Yeah. So do you guys have any final thoughts for the end of Season 2, the second end of Season 2?
I have one kind of related reading to what we were talking about with Less Than Ideal Productions. There's a really fantastic article, I think it was on Vox, but they did a really great interview with the sound engineer who's worked on a ton of Super Bowl halftime shows, and in particular he talks about the Prince one that also experienced a ton of rain, and in it he goes
Purple
into
rain.
detail, the purple rain specifically,
yes.
And he goes into painstaking detail about the challenges of working with it. Besides the rain, just the fact that he needed to scientifically convince Prince's sound team that they will achieve the same stadium sound results with cart speakers versus speakers they hang in the air. The Prince team really was pushing for air speakers, but there's no way that they could fly them in, rig them, make sure that they were good in the 5 minutes they have to turn it over before the halftime show. So he talks about all these challenges, and then like the rain, they thought like, is Prince not going to perform? How are we going to do with the instruments? And Prince was just like, yo, I'm game. And it turned into one of the best Super Bowl performances ever. And one of the last questions they ask is just like, okay, like, so which was your favorite to work on? And immediately he's like, the Prince one. So like, even though with all the challenges, like that's why we do what we do. If we wanted to do something that was easy, we wouldn't be doing a production. So it's a really fantastic read. I'm going to post a link to it on the YouTube post and Facebook and everything. So I'll link to that if you want to read that.
Yeah, it was a great article.
Yeah.
We'll post it on, no, you're good. We'll post it on the LiveX Facebook and Twitter. So check that out. if you want to read the full article. That was a great plug. Yeah. Anything else? We want to close it out?
Yeah, let's do it.
Cool.
All right, guys. We'll see you on March 5th, and we wish you the best of luck on your next live production. Roll the credits.